Welcome to another episode of Closers or Losers. My co-host, Matt Ryder, my business partner and CEO, is on vacation. We always do the podcast usually once a week with him, and then we always have a client that we go through everything. But sometimes I like when Matt goes on vacation because then I get to interview like really just unique guests. If you follow me on any social media or anything, or you're one of our clients in our sales training programs, you'll know that I geek out on human psychology, human behavior, social dynamics, even hypnotist stuff, which is actually part of it. And we're going to talk a little bit about today. So today I've got a really amazing guest. I was on his podcast the other day and I was like, I really would like to have him on our show because I love to bring something that's a little bit different than what we talk about, but applies to sales, applies to persuasion that you can take in your own life, whether it's for dating purposes, whether it's to have a better relationship with your spouse or whoever you're with, or if you're a business owner that wants to scale your company, or you might even be an enterprise CEO on this podcast and you're wanting to go to the next level, or you're an individual salesperson that just wants to sell more. What we're going to talk about today, the next 30 to 45 minutes, I can assure you will help you. So I'm here with Paul Ross. Now, Paul Ross, if you haven't heard of him, make sure you Google him. He's an author, a best-selling author. He's a speaker, does a lot of keynotes, and he's also an elite sales trainer. Some of you might not know that. And what I really love, he is a master hypnotist. I love hypnotist because it actually is real. I can assure you, we'll talk about how it works, all that today. And he's a master practitioner of NLP. Okay, if you don't know what NLP means, that's neuro-linguistic programming. He's been doing this for 30 years, so the dude actually has experience. We find a lot of people, in anything, the training industry. I'm not just saying sales training, but like any type of marketing training, dating, coaching, or just all these different things. Like they'll have a little bit of experience and a little bit of success for a year or two, and then all of a sudden they start a coaching business. And I'm just like, it takes thousands of hours. I'd say more than 10 to 15,000 hours and beyond to actually become an expert, to train something where the end user actually understands it, why they're doing it, and can actually get a collectible, like predictable result from it. You can't acquire those skills. Like if I had started a sales training company 1 or 2 years after I started as a salesperson, 7th level would be like 99% smaller than it is now. I just wouldn't have the expertise. I wouldn't have the background, the knowledge, the ins and outs. And so this is why I'm so grateful that Paul is on today, because he's got 30 years experience in this subject. Paul, how are you, man?
Fantastic. And I just want to say, before we begin this exploration together today of the world,
that's what I feel like it's going to be,
of hypnotic persuasion and influence, I just want to share that it's my honor to be here and present with all of you when a great learning is about to take place. So thinking about it like that as we continue share together.
I love that. We're getting, we usually do the podcast here in my office here, but there's a big podcast studio that's being built. We just got the building right next to here that's adjoined, and like half of it is going to be like for our podcast. So here in about 3 months, we're going to fly you in here because you're not that far away. We're going to fly you in here. We're actually going to do a podcast in person. It'd be pretty cool. Okay. So let's get started. All right. So I want to ask you a couple questions here, and then I think we'll go different places depending on where we go here. So what is, in your mind, like what is one thing that you're actually, let's say, always selling, no matter what business or industry you're like? What's one thing you're always selling in your mind?
Yeah, so my orientation is completely different from anything else I've seen out there. And I agree with you, by the way, the old models of selling are dead. And I've been reading a genius book.
Oh, hey.
Helping me.
Mr.
I want to recommend that everyone get this book. It's absolutely incredible. I find myself in agreement with so many things in this book. What I believe, and in my experience, and I got my start
Yeah.
being a dating and seduction coach for men.
Okay, everybody's going to want to know about that. Men and women watching here on YouTube, or maybe they're listening here somewhere. But I got to know more about that. How did you get into dating, like being a dating coach and a seduction?
We will get there. But what I want to say is what I've discovered, whether it's dating or whether it's selling products or services, you're not doing that. You're selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. And this begs the question, because I know you say in your book, decisions are emotionally made.
Yeah.
The question is, where do emotions and decisions arise from? Do they arise from the conscious or the unconscious mind?
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I believe that people primarily make their decisions unconsciously, and then consciously they rationalize them.
They do.
So how can we immediately begin to capture and lead the imagination, the emotions, and most importantly, the focus of our prospects? Because one of the things
I want to ask you something though while you're going there, but where did you learn that? Because there's not many people that I talk to or that I would know, right? So my background in college is behavioral science and social dynamics, right? So typically, unless somebody like studies that, or is like really deep in psychology, they would never even know what you just said. So tell us where you actually learned that. I think it's important for people to understand this.
Yeah, well, I learned it first. Why did I have to learn it? I learned this as a college student who just couldn't get a date to save his life. And
out of necessity, you had no choice but to learn.
I had to, and then after college, I couldn't get a date up until like in my late 20s, and that was quite painful until I stumbled into NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is the study of the way language shapes decisions, structures consciousness, and drives behavior. And so one of the things I recognized early on when I studied with my mentor, Richard Bandler, who's the co-creator of NLP, is Richard said something that he dropped as a side note, but I really listened. And no one else got it. Richard said, you're never selling your product or service, you're selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. So I thought, let's go home and unpack that with dating, mating. And what I found is I thought, okay, what state of consciousness do I need to evoke in a woman so she makes the decision to be attracted to me?
Okay.
And how do I go about doing that? What are the states of consciousness? Well, first of all, I need to get her focused on me. I can't go up and say, Debbie, you will focus on every word I say, because she'd flip me the bird or walk away. So instead, I had to learn to use constructs out of classical hypnosis and map them over into what seems like an ordinary, normal conversation.
When you say constructs, do you mean like pattern interrupts? Tell us what you mean by that.
Yes.
People are not going to know what you mean.
Yes. So a construct is a language pattern that's aimed at creating a specific state. Let's say I wanted you to focus on what I say. I would not say, Jeremy, focus closely on what I have to say directly. I would say, Jeremy, as we continue to share this discussion together. Now let's pause right there. I said, we, share, and discussion. Those are what I call implied relationship words. I didn't say, Jeremy, as I tell you all about this, that's me. It's about me rather than being about you. When I say before we share this exploration together, we sharing together what I call implied relationship words. So we're already creating a state of trust and rapport within the first 30 seconds of conversation. We don't have to wait to build it. So I would say, I don't know at which point you might find yourself focusing in on what it is you discover is of most interest to you. Now, I just said, find yourself focusing in. Jeremy, what does it mean to find yourself doing something? Did you ever just find yourself falling in love?
Find yourself means that you start to feel and you go deeper. That's really what find yourself means. So you're getting in like that emotional state. So what you're doing there is you're seeding in slowly, right? Like, it's not like you're going to say that one thing and they're like, emotional state, but you're seeding slowly to get them there. It's like you're giving them the milk before you give them the meat. It's like a process.
Correct. And what I'd add into that to complete it is finding yourself implies it's not a conscious act. It's just going to happen while you're something of the observer. If you find yourself falling in love, it's something that happens to you. A more mundane example would be, did you ever just find yourself suddenly standing in front of your refrigerator and you're reaching into the door and looking for something. You don't even remember walking there or why you walked there or what you were doing.
Yeah.
So by implying it, by saying before we begin our exploration together today of what it is we're going to be sharing, I'm not sure at which point you might find yourself growing more and more focused on what it is you're going to be interested in. I'm being vague. And by being vague, which by the way violates the whole sales thing of always make the message clear. I'm saying there are points where you don't want to make the message clear.
Now, this is key. I want everybody to hear what Paul just said. So a lot of you have been forced to learn. And like I said, here's my always saying, it's not your fault that you were forced to learn, but it is your what? It is your problem. So a lot of you have been forced to learn, like you can never say, you got to be clear and concise 100% with your message. And part of that is reality and true, but there's also parts where sometimes slowing down, acting confused, like, I'm not sure. Now, it depends on if you're speaking from stage one to many. Sometimes it is going to be different if you're selling one-to-one, and sometimes there's just differences. So I always say to everybody, like, there's not, like, when you say, like, every time you have to be clear and concise on a cold call, well, you can, but you got to realize they're used to that. So every prospect, it's not like you're the only person who's ever cold called them. Right. Literally, like, they're getting cold calls 5 times a day. And if you sound like everybody else, they react, like their brain goes there. You're triggering like fight or flight mode, right? So you sound like everybody else, they deal with you a bit. But if I come in on a cold call and I'm acting a little bit more confused, well, I'm not even sure if you're the right person I should be talking to, but I called to see, like, who would be, I guess, like, responsible, like in your department, for looking at any, I don't know, like possible hidden gaps in your, like, your accounting that could be causing you guys overpay in your taxes every month. Who should I be talking to about that? See, I'm acting confused the whole time, and I'm slowing down, I'm verbal pausing, but all that does is it triggers the prospect to, like, anticipate everything I'm saying and asking. Like, they're actually engaged, and I'm causing them to be engaged by my voice, like we call it verbal pacing. I'm pacing it out, and I'm acting confused because when I act in a confused tone right there, before I have any trust or credibility with this prospect, they don't know me from Adam, it causes them to interpret that I'm confused. I'm generally not sure who I should be talking to, right? So they come to my rescue. And then when I say, who would be responsible for, and then I repeat back a problem, if they're the ones responsible, it's hard for them to say, oh, I'm not responsible. Like, they're like, oh, that's me, I'm responsible. So those are just examples of a little pattern interrupt right there that you're talking about. I was
going to say, it's putting a larger framework around it. It's pattern interrupt. Now, I learned pattern interrupts very early on in my dating journey, because over and over I would hear, I have a boyfriend. Yeah. And now the 3 responses women are used to hearing is a guy arguing, like, oh, your boyfriend's not as good as me. Yeah. Or, come on, give me your number. Begging. Yeah. Arguing.
Like, you're needy. You're needy. Yeah.
Begging, arguing, or just accepting. And so I learned a pattern interrupt. When a woman would say, I have a boyfriend, I would say, now, Debbie, you don't need to convince me someone else finds you attractive. That's not how I make up my mind about you. So now I'm flipping the script completely. I'm changing the meaning to, she's got something I want that I'm begging for, to, oh, she's trying to convince me that I'm worthwhile.
So what you just did is you raised your status in her mind, because, like you said, when you come across needy, like, oh, just give it to me, or like you keep texting and they don't, like, you text and then they don't respond for a day, and then you text again, and then they don't respond, and you text again without them responding. Like, she just views you at a much lower status, right?
Right. So now I've just flipped the script. And now this also works with objections. I use something called the counterexample. So often what I love about this book, if you do it right, according to what you teach, you're probably not going to get objections. But
you're not going to, you're going to eliminate a lot of them. I say 50%, 70%.
But one of the things I teach is I need more time to think it over. Yeah. My response is do a strong pattern interrupt that actually creates objection amnesia. There's no difference between this pattern interrupt and literally dropping someone into a deep trance and giving them amnesia. I learned this from Milton Erickson, who was the Einstein of hypnotherapy. So if someone said, I need more time to think it over, I would say, Hey, I understand completely. Can I ask a question? Have you ever taken a long time to think something over and it still turned out to be a horrible decision? Maybe it's not about time, but about the clarity you need to recognize a great decision can be made. So looking at it like that,
Yeah.
let's bring out to the table what we really need to understand.
Yeah. So you reframe them. So you got them to think about that differently, not to think it over, but is this what I'm looking for? You just reframe them to think almost like to a different objection that's easier to overcome, is what you just did.
Exactly. And as you have so quite brilliantly stated in your book, oftentimes prospects don't know what the real problem is. And what I would add into that, Jeremy, is they sometimes feel stupid about admitting that confusion. So I want to take away the whole idea that they have to feel stupid about it. I want to use words like share and we, so they again are falling back into or
collaborative,
back into that collaborative frame rather than because if you combat the prospect, you're going to lose. They're holding the power and you're making it a power struggle. I don't want to get into a combat.
Yeah, because if you push human behavior, they're going to push back. And so many salespeople, I find it so odd that sales trainers, and most sales trainers, not everybody, I've got a few studs out there like you and some other people that I hang with that understand this concept is, you know, they've been taught that they have to do all the work, they have to pressure, they have to push, convince, sell. But what you're sharing here and that what we would train is like the prospects are the ones that have the problems, not you. Why are you doing all the work? Like they're the ones that have the problems. Your solution solves those. So why are you like trying to convince them? Because we would train like we're going to get them to do the work. And you did that with like the dating example. You kind of flip the script where she's like, oh, well, maybe I need to lean into what this guy has to offer because it's just, it's different and it raises your status. So like with that example, think it over like you talked about. And I think, you know, if everybody on here, especially if you're a client, you would know the I want to think it over objection is not an objection. They're not going to sit there for 3 weeks thinking it over, like writing out you know, is this good? Is this bad? Like they just say, I want to think it over. That's a defensive mechanism because your sales process, because you don't know how to build a gap from where they are to where they want to be, triggered uncertainty in their mind.
Exactly.
And they don't want to tell you what their real concern is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly correct. I hope I'm glad we're in agreement about that. We just see it from slightly different angles.
Yeah, no, I like your angle. I like that.
Yeah,
that's good. Okay, so let's keep talking there because I think that reframe was actually really good. I'm going to go back and listen to that recording. I love that reframe because the only thing I would do, because I like that actually. What I would do, what we would teach, there's a couple different ways. So like if somebody says, yeah, I just need some time to think it over, I could be like, think it over? Like I'm confused. And I just think it over? Well, yeah, it's just a big decision. I'm not sure if I have the money. Well, now I know it's a money objection, not think it over, right? So, see how I got them I just like, think it over. But I have to say that in a confused tone where they like, they interpret that as like, oh, he needs clarity. So their brain like says what they want to think over, right? Because when I understand what they want to think over, then I know what the concern is, and then I can help them overcome that, you know?
Exactly. And there's another point here that I'd like to raise. And again, you say I'm going to plug your book again because it's just so good. I haven't read a book this good on selling in 20 years. The last book I read equal to this in value was called Hypnotic Selling by a guy, Don Moyne. Don Moyne is still the OG of hypnotic selling. You ought to have him on your show sometime.
We're going to get him on the show.
It's Moine, I believe.
Okay.
So another point I want to raise is not only do prospects not trust you, they no longer trust their own ability to make a good decision. It's not enough to get them to trust you anymore. Now you have to get them to trust themselves. And there's a good reason why they don't trust themselves. Number one, they have too many options, and a confused mind
never buys.
Number two, and this is a really important thing that I think is missing is they don't have the focus to make a good decision. Back when I grew up, we didn't have these. We had dial phones. Nowadays, people are so distracted. I would challenge anyone out there watching or listening to this. How many times have you checked your smartphone today? I've seen people checking their smartphone while they're crossing an intersection, not looking that the light is now changed.
Yeah, I mean, what's the first thing most people do when they wake up in the morning before they go to the bathroom? check their social media, check their phone.
Guilty. So that begs the question, Jeremy, how do we create that focus rapidly, quickly, easily, naturally, in a way where it feels like it's the prospect's own idea? The subtitle of my book is how to get your prospects to convince themselves to buy and add top dollars to your bottom line. So how do we create those states of focus? Well, obviously, we can't give a direct command. Focus in on what it is I have to say. If I were doing a presentation before a large group of people, I would say, before we begin our exploration together today of this opportunity, I'm not sure all the ways you might pause and find yourself really focusing in on what it is you're going to discover. But as that's taking place, can I ask that you do one thing for me? Would you please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision's being made? And by the way, one more little bonus goodie there. When I say share the questions that naturally arise, I'm not saying ask, I said share. What's the difference between asking and sharing? Asking is something someone does to someone. Sharing implies a relationship. And I did something else. I said, would you share the questions that naturally rise when a great decision's being made? That's very vague. I didn't say a great decision to sign up. I said a great decision is being made. Well, who's making the decision? Why? When? How? When you're deliberately vague, it's a hypnotic phenomenon. The unconscious mind will search for all possible meanings. And in the context of them being already focused in, the meaning they're going to give it is that, yes, they're going to sign up. So you suggest it by being vague, and you do one more thing. You're planting a post-hypnotic suggestion. Every time they ask that question, it reinforces that same chain of suggestions that they're focused and they're going to make a great decision.
I like that. Can I share something with you that I do?
Of course.
So, and I'll share it from a different, something different, not selling one-on-one, but, you know, we typically do about 2 keynotes a month. I don't like to do any more than that. We typically get approached by companies or events to do about probably 10 a month, but I'm like, dude, I don't want to be gone like every day. Like what's, I can just go live on Instagram and have 2,000 people on there in 10 minutes. So I don't need to go, but I love doing keynotes just because I like more live audiences sometimes. And I do a lot of pattern interrupts in the keynote because I have to distinguish myself as different than all the other speakers before or after. So when they walk away from that event, I'm still in their mind. Now, how do I do that? Because what most speakers would do, I'll show you 2 examples. And there's a whole, everything I do, every word I say, every verbal pause in that training or keynote, I do for a specific reason to help them in the audience stay engaged and actually retain what I'm teaching them. Okay. So like when I come out on the stage, what do pretty much 99.9% of all speakers do? Hey, everybody, how's it going? Hey, give me a shout. Like, I love Dallas. I love the weather. This is so awesome. Everybody jump, put your hands together. Isn't this great? And if you do that as a speaker, that's totally cool, everybody. Like, I love that. They're just not really my personality. I'm just the boring guy. So when I come out, because typically, you know, I've spoke behind like Ed Milet and, you know, some big speakers, you know, and things like that, you know, and so I got to separate myself from them, as they might be more well known because they've been around longer than we have, right? We're like the new kids on the block over here, 7th level. So when I walk out on the stage, when they introduce Jeremy Miner, blah blah blah, I walk out and I'm like, my face is like this, like the poker face. So I walk out. I'm not being mean or anything, but I don't say a word. Okay, I don't jump up and down. I'm just normal walk, cool and collective. I walk out to the front of the stage and I just stop. And
it's great response potential.
And I look around for about 20 to 30 seconds. And do you know what happens when I don't say a word and I look at the audience, like in my eyes, like I'm looking at you, like we're connecting right here. And I'm looking and I might see this lady on the 17th row. I might see this guy on the 2nd row. And I look over here and I'm looking around and everybody, you know what everybody's doing? They're like, and everybody like stops. Even people that were going to the bathroom, they stop. Nobody has their phone anymore. So I do that because I've got to get them to engage. If I don't, they're going to get on their phones, check their emails, social media. They might go to the bathroom. And you'll see it when I do, like when I speak at things, like nobody freaking moves. Like they're like, what's going on? And then I'll stay there for about 20 seconds on stage. And then I walk off the stage into the crowd. And then there's about 9 different ways I could go. And I walk up in the crowd and then I sit there because I'm usually going to talk to about 3 or 4 people in the audience and ask them like a question that gets everybody to think, right? That I then end that keynote with at the very end with the answer. All right. So I'm not going to give the magician never gives his magic away, right? There's just a little bit, right? So anyway, so what I do is I'll sit there and they'll be like, you know, this whole row. And I know in this row, there's 3 people I'm going to pick. And so I'll sit there and I'll just stop. And I'll sit there for like another 10 or 15 seconds. People are like, what is going on? Like, what's going on? And then I go, and that pattern interrupt, I'm telling you, like, if you ever watch me, if you go to YouTube and type in like me doing like a keynote or something, you'll probably see me do that. And you're like, what's going on? But that's a really good pattern. Now, one other that I do as well is I'll go, because I got to get the audience on board, right? I got to get them to see that maybe they have problems they didn't realize they had before I got on that stage, right? And I'm there to help them solve that. But I can't come out and say you've got problems and here's how you solve it, because who am I? I'm just some dude, right?
Exactly.
So what I'll do is I'll start talking. I'll go through like my hero's journey and like, so I can get down to where they think like, oh, if Jeremy can do it because he grew up on a ranch in the middle of Missouri and on a cattle town and in a town of less than 800 people, maybe, you know, if he could learn sales and do so well, maybe I could learn, right? And so at the end of that, I'll say, because I know you, like me, want to provide a great lifestyle for your family. Now you, Paul, know exactly what I just did there, don't you?
Of course.
Okay. What did I just do?
Command. You gave an embedded command.
Yeah.
I got it. And it's also confusing. You like me, does that mean
I know you like me?
It's also known in NLP as a scope ambiguity. So if I said, Jeremy, speaking to you as someone who's strongly invested in improving each and every day, I'm not sure all the ways you might find yourself really wanting to collaborate with me in a way that serves that mission. But thinking about it like that, as we continue to share together our mutual value that we bring to people, let's put that out on the table. So it's completely vague. And it appeals to it. We don't know. When I say speaking to you as someone who's constantly invested every day in improving what they do, am I talking about myself? Am I talking about you? Am I talking about both of us? That confusion creates what we call in the world of hypnosis a transderivational search. The unconscious mind will search for all possible meanings and assign the one that makes sense in that context. And this is why I say, if you're not using the power of language to directly address the unconscious in a way that seems like a normal, ordinary, everyday conversation, then you're leaving a tremendous amount of money on the table, because as you point out over and over, decisions are made emotionally. And let's answer the question, where do emotions come from? They come from the unconscious. So let's go right to the powerhouse, capture and lead it in the first 1 to 2 minutes. So we've already got that established. And that's the basis of what I'm teaching. Again, this is what I still teach today to my very high net worth clients when I'm training the dating and seduction stuff.
It's so true. It's all about pattern interrupts, because this is probably like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. It was about 13 years ago, I went through my divorce, something like that, 13, 14 years ago. So I was this newly single guy. I was like 30 or something like that. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I got married when I was like 22. So I was just like, had been out of the ball game so long that I was just like, it's like, it was just awkward to like talk. And I was like a really successful salesperson. So I'm like, how is this awkward to talk to women? But I knew what didn't work was going up to like a female that every guy is trying to go up to and, oh, you're so beautiful. Like, you look amazing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know, it's like neediness. I'm like, I knew that wouldn't work. Right. So I'm like, how do I do like pattern interrupts? And like, how do I make her feel like she doesn't know if I really like her or not? Like, it's almost like a mystery. That's what I call it, right? So it's almost, it's like, especially let's say and if you're a female listening to this, you're like, these guys, but hey, you can use this on guys too.
Of
Like
course.
everything we're saying here is like, use it on the men, like give it
Sure.
back to them, right? Especially if you're wanting to date some guy that you really like and you don't know what to do. Like this is for men and women, what we're talking about here. It's not one-sided, but I would do, I mean, there's so many things that I would do, but I remember like if I ever got into a conversation with her or something like that, I would be like, there's three things that I always look in someone that I want to date. They've got to have like, they just knock out gorgeous, so beautiful. That's important. But more important is like, they got to have a great personality, like just fun. They don't have a lot of drama. You know what I mean? Like drama girls. And then, most important, they really have to have a head on their shoulders. They got to be smart, motivated, like want to do something big in their life. And I mean, after talking with you, like you seem like you have at least two of those three for sure. And then I would look around. Now you got to remember, if I say that like that, usually that would be in like somewhere where it's loud, there's music, so she can't hear everything. Right. And there's pattern interrupts all over. And when I say that, and then I kind of look around and I kind of like laugh a little bit, it causes her to be like, well, does he like me? Does he not like me? What does he feel like I don't have? I'm not, like, it causes a mystery in her mind. And you can do that on a guy as well. Like if you're a lady looking for a guy, you can do the same thing. It's just something that triggers where it's almost like they don't know if you like them or not. So it causes them to almost pull you in and want more rather than
That's not exactly what I would do, but I don't want to make this a show about seduction. So let's move on to something else.
That worked really, really well, actually. They'd be like that. And another one, and this is like in the conversation, but I still remember doing this, is I would teach my friends this, but I'd like put my arm around her and be like, let's find you a guy in here. Like, who's your type?
That's
and I would point, and I would be always funny. And I would point to like, some guy over there that had like just a crazy jacket on, which was like, purple and pink and just all crazy. And I'm like, I think you would like that guy. She'd be like, no, I don't like that type of guy. What are you talking about? I'm like, well, what about that guy? And I'd point to some guy, and let's say that his beard was out to here and like his, just whatever, you knew that she wouldn't like that type of guy. She's like, no, I don't like that type of guy at all. And so it would cause her to feel like, does he really like me, or does he look at me as a friend? Because most women put guys in the friend zone. So what I was doing is I was causing her to feel maybe I was putting her in the friend zone, which caused her to be more interested in talking to me. But anyways, I digress.
Yes, we digressing a little much here. So let's dive back into sales.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's go back in. So I want to talk about the emotional side of the brain and how you get a person to get into their emotional state. I want to kind of go down that word. Do you have any like word tracks or certain questions maybe that helped you, at sales or dating or anything that kind of got them to kind of get into that emotional state?
Sure. Well, again, we don't want to command it.
Yeah.
Directly. We want to embed the commands.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, well, I have this great product, and I know it solves your problems. Tell me what your problems are, and then I'll show you how it matches it. I'm not going to do any of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I don't know what it is that you do when you find yourself naturally and easily developing a state where you really are interested in what it is a person has to say. But as that's taking place, as we continue to share together, I'm really wondering, just what is it that you find is the biggest challenge in what it is you're doing and where you want to go? Yeah. So again, I'm creating states of attention, focus, a sense that this is a shared exploration, not me. See, when you ask questions right off the bat, the wrong kind of questions, people feel like they're being interrogated. And when they feel like they're being interrogated, then they feel like they're being pressured and they feel like you're needy.
They emotionally shut down. They stay surface level. So if you guys are watching or listening to us, when you ever notice, I think what Paul's saying here is, you ever notice when you ask, you thought were good questions, right? But your prospect kind of gives you like vague, generalized, surface level answers. Well, what you just did is what Paul said, is you triggered in their mind sales resistance, where their wall came up. because they feel the questions you're asking are for your own purposes that you're going to try to use to sell them something or close them, even if they booked a sales call, right?
I hate
Because
that word close.
yeah,
By the way,
you're
forgive me for
interrogating them.
interrupting.
Yeah.
Forgive me for interrupting. I hate that word close.
Yeah.
It implies something that's only done at the end of a sequence of things, and just the word close.
Yeah.
I think rather than closing, I never close. I only joyfully extend opportunities
Yeah.
to connect with what it is I'm offering in a fun and powerful way. Just language. One of the things I teach is language is a canopy of consciousness, and words are very powerful. So if you think in terms of a close, you're automatically going to shape and structure your thinking and your behavior and your responses, and you're just going to blow it completely. That old model of always be closing is dead.
Well, that's why even when you watch that movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, and they see, and you watch the salesperson in the house of the prospect, and he's like trying to close, and he's pushy and pushy, and they're just like, oh, it's so sick. It's like prospects don't like that. Like quite literally, you are causing your prospects to run the other way because they feel like you're trying to close them. We don't like the word closing either. We call it commitment. It's asking commitment questions to get them to commit to take the next step, purchase what you're offering so their problems get solved and they get where they want to be. And I think it's so powerful. We're talking about hypnosis here because your words really hypnotize you. Words you say every day hypnotize you to act and react certain ways.
Correct.
Now, in society, I want to ask everybody this question. In society, is the word closer, closing, pitch, pitching, are those words that the average human being would find attractive or would have negative connotations to? Negative, right? Like anybody sitting here listening to me, do you like when a salesperson tries to close you? No. Do you like when a salesperson tries to pitch you? No. But the thing is, when you're sitting there telling yourself, like, I got to work on my pitch, I got to get better at pitching, like, I'm going to go into my pitch today on stage, like if you sell from stage, or, you know, I need to get better closing lines. The problem that you're doing is you're hypnotizing your brain because you already know in your mind that you don't like those things and society doesn't like them. So when you go into your pitch, you start to get nervous.
Or too enthusiastic. If I could, one of the things I loved about your book, here it is again. I'm assuming people who watch this have already gotten it. And I say almost the exact same thing in my book. Or you get too enthusiastic. Enthusiasm will kill a sale. I say the exact words in my book. Neutral is the best. I'm pounding the table so my camera. Neutral is the best state to be in. Forget about being enthusiastic. I don't care what Tony Robbins does. Great for Tony. If you're in front of an audience of 40,000 people and you need to pump everyone up, I get the peak state.
Different than selling one-on-one.
Different. But if you're in a peak state when you're selling one-on-one, your prospect is going to think you're a maniac. And plus peak states take a lot of energy to maintain. You can't keep.
I totally agree. And here's the thing, like Paul's not saying you shouldn't be excited about what you sell, but keep it to yourself. Like, of course, you should be excited about your products or services, but keep it internal. What most salespeople have been taught, like, be so enthusiastic that somehow the prospect's going to be excited because you're excited. I mean, what proof, what science report, I mean, what data shows that the more excited you are about what you're selling, like a car, that somehow magically they're going to be excited? The opposite is true, right? The more excited and in your face you are, the more they're going to like, whoa, what's going on? Because I want to go back to those words: pitching, pitch, closing, closer. So everybody knows when you go into your close, and just be real with yourself, listening and watching us here, you know, when you go into your close or you go into your pitch, you start to feel what? You start to have like an adrenaline rush. You get nervous.
Cortisol and adrenaline.
Anxiety, and you talk faster. And you talk in a nervous tone. I can quite literally point to, even if you like, not even talking about one-on-one selling, but let's say you sell something from stage and you're always talking about, I got to get better at my pitch. I got to pitch, you know, I got to get better at pitching. I can point out when a speaker is going into their quote unquote pitch because they start talking faster and they sound a little bit nervous because they don't like that either. So if you're selling from stage, use the words like, I need to get better at my call to actions. Like my call to actions have to be more focused on them and like their problems and where they're wanting to go. See, call to action is more neutral.
Or even better,
yeah.
or alternatively, Jeremy,
yeah,
my opportunity extension. Rather than saying, I've got to make these cold calls, you say, I claim my joyous making of my opportunity extensions today.
Yeah.
You can't feel nervous.
Yeah.
If you view it as extending an opportunity. And let me go even further.
Yeah.
To me, sales is about creating states of consciousness. And it's not just about sliding suggestions into your prospect's mind. This is going to blow your mind, Jeremy. No one has ever told this to you before. It's about expanding their mind to include new possibilities they've never seen before. The idea of selling being about expanding states of consciousness is totally off the wall, bat bleep crazy. Can I say bat whatever?
Yeah, you can say it. It's okay.
It's bat shit crazy.
Yeah.
It's like something out of the 70s that Timothy Leary, tune in, turn on, drop out would say. But I have found it's when you come from outside the box, you can see things inside the box that don't work. This is why you're able to present the genius that you do. You came from a background of studying neuroscience, of studying neuroemotion. That's why you could see from a different angle. I come from the angle of studying pickup and seduction, which is the biggest sale of your life. That's why I could look into the box and go, no, that doesn't work. So the idea that selling is about expanding your prospect's mind to include things they didn't know. Here's the thing. They didn't believe they were capable of. It's possible for them. And the most important one, they deserve. Never underestimate your prospects' deep hidden belief that they don't deserve what it is that they want. I agree. Sell the wants, not the needs. But don't assume that they deeply believe they deserve what it is that they want, because a lot of people don't.
I totally agree. And going back to that, it's like, you talk about using more neutral words. We call them neutral languaging is what I call it in the book, right? You have something very similar. So you're more unbiased. Like in the beginning, you're not quite sure if you can even help yet because you don't know enough about what's going on. Now, it's not like as you go through the conversation, you're still unsure. But in the beginning, my biggest job as a sales professional, like if I'm selling one-to-one or if I'm talking to an audience of 10,000, my biggest thing I have to do is get them to let their guard down. If I can't get them to let their guard down and their walls up, there's really no sale, or it becomes much, much harder because you get tons of objections and you're just chase mode. So if I can get them to let their guard down, they emotionally open up, right?
Can I challenge you on something?
You can challenge me at any time.
Okay. That metaphor of a wall, there's not literally a wall there. That metaphor may not be the most useful metaphor. Instead of thinking of a wall, I think of the state of consciousness that's not useful. So instead of thinking, how do I get them to drop the wall? My idea is, what states of consciousness do I want to co-create with them that would make it very easy for them to focus in, to trust me immediately, and to actually root for me. Let's go back to what I said before. When I use what I call implied relationships, implied relationship words, we, our, together, explore, share. Before we begin our exploration together today, well, we implies a relationship. Exploration. For every exploration, there must be a leader. And for every leader, there must be a
follower.
Exactly. So I'm implying, without stating it, that my follower. You get it? Our exploration together. Well, when it's together, it's not something I'm doing to them. It's implying a relationship from the very beginning.
It's collaboration.
It's collaboration, but I'm implying it and suggesting it within the first 30 to 60 seconds of a conversation.
No, I totally agree.
The necessity of this is your prospects can't focus any longer than that. Problem, never underestimate nowadays in the new way of selling, that problem of focus. Even if they want what you have, even if you've made it clear, they may not have enough focus to even listen.
I agree.
So we need to create that focus. We need to create that ability for them to trust themselves. It's not enough to know, like, and trust. They have to trust themselves. And I say the way you do it is to suggest it by saying, good decision is being made.
Yeah.
Again, not you're making a good decision. A great decision is being made.
Yeah, it's just vague. You're neutral.
And that implants the suggestion that they're going to make a great decision. They can trust themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. The reason why we use wall in as salespeople is because typically I want to implant in a salesperson's mind or a business owner like certain images, right? And what is one thing a salesperson doesn't like when the prospect stays surface level, the wall of resistance. It's more a marketing term, but you know what I mean.
I get it.
I love that. Man, I love that. You know, I want to continue this conversation, but I know you got a hard stop. I've got a hard stop. I tell you what, because I know everybody's going to want us to continue this conversation. Would it be a crazy idea if we flew you in here to the podcast?
Where are you located?
Scottsdale, Arizona, corporate headquarters.
Oh, I love Arizona.
To fly you in here in the fall and have 2 hours.
We could go. Yeah. You know what? We could go prowling the streets of Tempe for some co-ed.
Oh my gosh. I'm too old for that, brother. Now I want to okay, all right. So I want to specify to everybody when we talk about when he's talking about seduction, dating, and everything. I know Paul, he doesn't refer like he's out to manipulate someone or anything like that. No. That would only be like somebody's really interested. Like when I was looking for a date, I wasn't the type, because I had friends that were obviously out to for their own needs and they just wanted to hook up. I never thought like that. I was always I want to find somebody I actually like. And if I like them, then I want to get them curious, and engaged, and maybe I'm a mystery, but I would never do that on somebody I had no intention of really wanting to date. You know what I'm saying? And I see a lot of men that study dating and seduction. It's they just do it to try to, have sex or something, and they don't care about the person that they're doing that with. That's not what we're talking about. That is manipulation.
No, what I'm talking about is creating states of emotional connection where it normally wouldn't happen because of this. Voltaire, one of my heroes, said, give me 10 minutes to talk away my ugly face and I will bed the Queen of France. Well, I originally, as someone that was not the most attractive guy in the world, wanted to get past that. But anyway, may I offer a way for people to stay in the conversation?
Now I want to say, okay, so how can they learn more about you? Is there somewhere they can learn about you? Do you have a book? Where do they need to go? Because I know we didn't even get into the hypnosis part too much. They're going to want to learn more about that.
Yeah. So I have my Rapid Sales Accelerator. It's absolutely free. It's a PDF copy of my book. You can get an instant download of that, plus a 20-minute video training on how to use hypnotic techniques to crush objections. Totally free. Go to paulrossbook.com.
paulrossbook.com.
Yep.
Paul Ross, ROSS book.com. All right. We're going to put that in the show notes for everybody. paulrossbook.com. I'm going to go buy that today, or I'm going to go get that. Even if it's free, I'll buy it from you. I don't care, because I'm interested in it. I love hypnosis. I just, we were at a private event a couple weeks ago in Vegas with some other multiple 8 and 9-figure business owners. There's 10 of us in there, and they brought in this magician, this hypnotist I was telling you about. And I was just blown away with some of the things, because the thing with me is I can see what he's doing, because I can analyze what he's doing, where everybody's how did he do that? I didn't know everything he was doing, but I could tell what he was doing to their mind, if that makes sense. So
what would be fun? Yeah. You know what would be fun when I fly out there? I can drop you into the deepest trance of your life, and Let's do it.
Maybe we'll do it on the podcast. I like it, man. All right, everybody. Thanks. Go to paulrossbook.com. I'm going to go there right after this. Paul, you're a legend. We're going to fly you out here this fall. We're getting a new podcast studio completely rebuilt and done. So we're going to have you in there. We're going to go a couple of hours, because I've got a lot more questions that we didn't even come close to getting. And just everybody, and I want to, going back to because I just want to make sure everybody understands, when Paul's talking about dating seduction, it does not mean you're doing it to manipulate people.
No.
You do it for people you're really interested in, that hey, I might date this person. And that's kind of how I viewed sales. Salespeople I was around when I was in the trenches selling for companies back in the day, they was always it's me against the prospect. I want to make money. I got to manipulate them. I never thought that way. I always thought they have problems. Okay. They might not understand what they are yet, but my questions and my tone will allow them to surface those problems. Right. And then my solution can solve those and get them where they want to be. So I always viewed the prospect and I was concerned for them if they stayed in the status quo and the problem stayed the same, would never get where they want to be. And as a sales professional, everybody, you really need to start thinking like that rather than I'm just trying to make money. Because I can tell you, if you think like I just talked about, you're going to make about 20 times more than what you are now.
As a matter of fact, if you go to paulrossresults.com, you'll see how someone 20x'd. I worked with him for 4 months. I 20x'd his sales. He went from $1,500 a month to $30,000 a month using these hypnotic.
That is incredible. I love that. Hey, we'll get together.
Results.com.
All right, we're gonna get together. We're gonna fly you out here this fall. So I will have I'll have my EA reach out to you, and we'll do it probably here in a few months. I think that podcast.
Okay.
So we'll be in touch,
good to me.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being on, Paul. You're a legend. The myth, the man, the legend, Paul Ross. See you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.